Welcome. I'm Larry Olsen, and this is the BrainVault Podcast. Did you know that the thoughts you're thinking right now are shaping the life you'll live tomorrow? Well, in this podcast, we just don't talk about mindset. We decode the blueprint behind behavior, performance, and possibility. This is where science meets real-world strategy, and your brain stops running on autopilot. If you're ready to turn default thinking into intentional living, you're in the right place. I want to welcome all of you to the BrainVault Podcast, where science meets success. And everybody defines success differently. But I want you to think about an ability to achieve, the ability to pull off what you are currently after. And it's a level of efficacy. Remember, efficacy is your own ability to cause, bring about, or to make something happen. And it really, in layman's terms, is what we think we can pull off. And that is where the ceiling lies within all of our growth. I want to ask you a question and set you up for guests that I'm so excited to have on today that I think you'll just find not only fascinating, but the applicability of what he has to offer is over the fence. Let me ask you this. What if your operating system for success was already inside of you, just waiting for the upgrade? Well, today we're diving into that question with Wei Houng, co-founder of HumanOp Technologies. He's a visionary leader who's turned human performance into measurable science. We're not talking about feel-good motivation here. We're talking about results. And listen to this: reducing turnover by 40%, boosting productivity by 35%, and cutting time to performance in half. Well, Wei's background bridges neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and quantum physics, melding the human and the technical to help people stop fighting their nature and start working with it. His mission: to realign people and organizations so they can operate in flow, not friction. Well, Wei, welcome to the BrainVault Podcast.
Thank you, Larry. That was a great introduction. I don't know who wrote that, but it was phenomenal.
Well, thank you. I'll just pat myself on the back here a little bit, but I don't either. You said that most people aren't broken. They're just misaligned. And that's such a powerful idea. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. What's the biggest way you see people unknowingly fighting their own wiring every day?
That topic in and of itself can run an entire weekend of workshopping, because it's what most of us grew up with. The moment we came out of our mother's womb, we've been pulled in a million directions of what we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to respond, from the first slap on the buttocks, all the way. I don't know if they do that still, but
well, if you're not breathing, they typically will.
Yeah, if you're not breathing, right? But we're immediately at the affect of societal expectations, cultural expectations, the nurturing of generations of belief of how human beings are supposed to be raised, how human beings are supposed to be. Our parents became certain human beings with a certain path in life, and that's all they really know based on how they were raised. And now the only thing they know to teach you is how they were taught. And so in those moments in your early stages of our lives, we may or may not be nurtured to our natural wiring. And it isn't until later in life when we start to feel the dissonance of what we've been raised and how we've been cultivated to believe. Because here's the pros and cons of human beings that most of us who are into this work, like in the BrainVault or everything that you do and everybody that is invested in people, we recognize something powerful about human being. The pros and cons of human beings are this. Human beings, the pros are that human beings are amazing. We are one of the most perfect machines on the planet that can be taught and trained to do anything. The cons of a human being is we are a perfect machine, one of the most perfect machines on the planet, and we can be taught and trained to do anything. It is a double-edged sword, because unless we're given an understanding of what we should actually naturally lean into, because every vehicle of human being self is different, how do we know what we're learning or taking on, subscribing to, should be something that we need to be leaning into.
Yeah. Since prefrontal lobes are kind of the last to develop, if you will, from 23 to 25 years, they talk about. That's a lot of training without our permission. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. They didn't realize that they didn't subscribe to it. And I think this is what you're talking about when you're getting into cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It's when we begin to develop that realization that this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
And if that's a big statement too, because most people say, I'm not working for me. I'm broken. I can't. And they don't realize, as you started out, the miracle machine that's capable of anything you can conceive. And yet they've been taught to measure themselves based on the results that they've been receiving.
Right.
So you get a D back in physics, and now you're stupid in physics.
Yeah. Right.
Right? I mean, it sounds so simple, but yet it is. But the unraveling is where I think people make it really complicated.
Right.
And a lot of people fall off because it becomes incomprehensible. Are you saying I can? You don't know who I am.
Exactly.
And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, about how do you go about, because what you shared is just marvelous already. The simplicity is beautiful. How do you get people to begin to start opening the awareness, which I think we both believe is the first step of any kind of transformation?
Mm-hmm.
Notice I didn't say change.
Right.
Because that's such a temporary thing. So how do you assist this kind of aha moment where I'm open now to really beginning to find out how to lose a little of the dissonance?
Yeah. The dissonance has a fundamental impact on every human being. And I think one of the first key points of awareness, and I'm all about simplicity, is simply notice what gives you energy and what takes away your energy.
Okay.
Because everything that we do in our lives as human beings is to perpetuate the existence of ourselves, and to perpetuate our existence of ourselves is through conversion of air, water, food, activities into energy that impacts the stability of our molecular structure of our bodies. Right? When we want to go beyond just survival, which is really kind of the goal with everything that we're talking about here, is that people are tired of just living in survival. They're tired of just adapting and adjusting to what you're saying, the cognitive dissonance of like, this doesn't feel right, but you know what? I can just survive. Yeah. We're at a point right now. We're
pretty adaptable.
Yeah, exactly. We're hyper adaptable. So the adaptation is, again, another one of those double-edged swords, right? We are amazing at adapting, but I think the big shift is, do you want to just survive or do you want to thrive? And the first place to notice is, what is it that you're doing every single day that either gives you energy or takes energy away? And I'm not talking about like taking coffee or energy drinks to give energy. I'm talking about natural things that occur, choices that you make, situations that you place yourself into, and then just really pay attention. Are you energized? Are you getting that jolt of pure, clean, beautiful, the rejuvenating oxygen, or is it slowly chipping away at your ability to keep it up or stay focused, or all these different things that are a byproduct of low energy? The foggy mind, the cluttered brain, the inability to get yourself motivated to do the things that you know you should do or want to do, right? Yeah. And that, I would say, would be the first step to keep it simple, because a lot of times people are so comfortable in that dissonance. They've become so adapted to just surviving that if you ask them to do what a lot of the other people say is like, you got to do this for self-awareness, you got to do this for self-awareness. Let's just keep it simple. Let's go back to the nature of everything, of how everything thrives. What is giving you energy and what it's taking it away? And you just start there and start paying attention and taking inventory of those things. That will give you the very first powerful step of understanding maybe the lifestyle I've chosen to have or create isn't something that is naturally aligned with my nature.
So I am totally in alignment with that. And this kind of almost crosses over to something that people have difficulty with. And that is do what you love. And some people can't make a living doing what they love. I've got family members that have learned that.
Yeah.
But I like the concept of the paying attention to your own narrative and how you're describing things to yourself, triggering your reptilian brain, your amygdala, to stifle and protect, as opposed to, like you said, from surviving to thriving, where we're starting to make better decisions. And yet people will take courses on how to make better decisions. And this is where I think people really start to go down these roads of despair, because it didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work. You have developed some things that I read about, and my jaw fell open at first in skepticism, because 99% accuracy is getting into, finding out whether or not that's my child or not. I mean, we're talking about huge numbers that you can't argue.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real important element that you bring, is we got to get to a point where people can't argue. It's such common sense, and it's science backed, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
And share with us some of the things that you bring to companies and individuals that can assist them in developing the clarity to be able to make choices that start to align with allowing them to be more friction-free and more into the flow, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that is what separates us and why we're the only human assessment technology to date that is patented in the entire ecosystem of human assessments is because we've leaned away from the psychometrics. We leaned away from the most volatile side of human existence. Our perspectives and our opinions, they're great. It's better than nothing, but it can change on a dime. Any of us who have experienced life at any level, you've noticed that all it takes is one moment of clarity or one traumatic event, and our entire perspective of what life is all about can shift.
Yeah.
The question then comes is, well, how can we possibly calibrate on a part of human being that volatile to truly understand them? And so when you said, like, do what you love, we forget that love is subjective, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when what someone else loves may not be what you love. And then let's not even consider the fact that you could be nurtured to believe that you love something. And then when you're doing what you were nurtured to believe that you love, then you realize that still doesn't work. And that's why those statements sometimes fail human beings, because they're encouraging human beings without recognizing, well, is your definition of what you love nurtured, or is it subjective, or is it truly objective? And what our technology does is brings back the objective understanding of self and others. Now, I say bring back because this is something, and my co-founder, who is the progenitor, the creator of this over 20 years ago, Dr. Zana Hackett, love her to death. Just spent a whole weekend with her this past weekend, actually. And the beautiful thing is that when people go to her and says, oh my God, your technology, and she goes, well, it's not really my technology. It's what nature's been telling us since day one that we've been ignoring. And the way to kind of set the framework for understanding why our technology works so well is we think about how long modern language, and human beings today are so reliant on language, right? It's the words, it's the choice, and how we use that to manipulate certain types of understandings or strategies. Modern language, as we know it in the human culture, has been around for a long time. It's like 50,000 years. Until we compare to how long human beings have actually been on the planet. And now we're looking at 2 million years. So the question I always ask is, well, what the heck were we doing for 1.95 million years? We did what everything else in nature did. We looked into the nature of things. Country lines, when they were laid down, did not dictate people looking a certain way. We were already tribing that way. We were tribing based on physical resonance. When we saw another human being that had a physical design of some way, and we felt and we paid attention to the natural resonance, we started to tribe in a certain way to understand these are people I can naturally get along with. it isn't until that country lines laid down that we started to propagate on a bigger level, but that's how human beings survived. We objectively looked into nature, looked into each other, and understood without language, without organized language, how to survive, right? So what we're reintroducing back into our culture, or reactivating, if you will, to the core of our DNA, are the core concepts of what allowed us to survive for the last 2 million years as a species. But now we have the powerful tool of language to add precision and efficiency to understanding what it is that we're seeing. Instead of grunts and clicks, we now can attach very precise, objectively designed labels to what it is that what makes every human being tick the way they tick, and create a unique understanding, objective understanding. The nice thing is that because there's so many nuances that we blended for so many years, no two humans will literally get the same result. 8 billion on the planet, 8 billion different results. And over the years, I've realized that, holy cow, this is just as unique as our thumbprint. And now I can honestly say we can, on a quantifiable level, truly honor the unique nature of every human being. When we understand that, human beings can now, without having been tugged in a million directions of how they're supposed to make certain decisions in life, can now lean into what is natural for them and start to make decisions that is in alignment with their nature. So you mitigate the chances of burnout. You start to create sustainable high performance, knowing what your upper and lower limits are. And you can truly recognize that you are not broken. You've been simply misunderstood by yourself and by others.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. When do we get started?
Yeah. You can go take the assessment right now. It's free.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Here's one I'd love you to explain. You talked about language. And when I'm working with leaders, I talk about the fact that if they've got someone who's really paying attention, they hear 100% of what's shared and understand less than 18%. And the reason their understanding is so low is they're interpreting the words based on their experiences, not the experience of the one who's sending the words.
Right.
So we have these definitions, and we live within these finite definitions, and we don't have a lot of words for emotions. And so I'm wondering, how did you guys break through not leading the witness when you're having them answer these questions? Because we all learned that if we don't get the right grades, we don't go to the next level.
Right.
And so we have that nurturing, right or wrong, inside of us. Have you guys dealt with that? Did you need to deal with that, or have you superseded that somehow?
Yeah, that's a great question. Good, bad, right, wrong, those are all human-made constructs, right? In nature, you don't see a lion kill a newborn antelope, and the wild kingdom says, "You bad boy, go to jail now because you did a bad thing." So, but human beings created that so that we can actually become better stewards of the planet. I mean, I think there's no other being on the planet that is well designed, better suited to be caretakers of the planet. We're currently not doing the best job at it, but my hope is that eventually we will be, right?
Yeah, right.
But to answer your question, when you lean into the physical nature of the human being, so our technology is based on physics, mathematics, nuclear forces, gravitational force, electromagnetism. Those are the core anchoring points that are immutable or irrefutable. Like when we ask questions like the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, the shape of the physical attributes that, quite frankly, you can't really lie about, and it is what it is, right? Yeah. And so when people say, well, how can you derive anything from that? I said, well, next time you go to a networking meeting or a room full of people, look around and notice that everybody looks different. The reason why our technology is patented, because we have an algorithm that has decoded that. We now can answer the question why certain people look a certain way, and they're within them have a natural potential of access to a subset of characteristic traits. And it's built into all of us. And again, it's not going to kind of like say that someone can't be a certain way. It just gives you the choice. If you nurture your nature, you will thrive. If you nurture something that goes against your nature, doesn't mean you can't do it. You have free will. you just might notice that there's a less than optimal output in terms of your capabilities, right?
Well, if you've got to will yourself into anything, that willpower dumps a lot of cortisol in your system. It's not good for the immune system.
Nope.
It's not good for longevity.
No.
It'll help you outrun a Bengal tiger, but
Yeah.
doesn't. But that's the only really way we release it.
Exactly.
And I'm just finding this so fascinating, but yet there's still this little skeptical side because I'm trying to make sense of it based on my current understandings and not having seen this.
Yeah.
You know, we all know that we can intellectualize anything, but until we take action, we have no right to say something is right or wrong or good or bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it academically, and it goes down to the fundamentals of science. And so I've learned over the years, especially, I mean, I've been put in front of NASA physicists to try to explain this, but the story behind that was there's a guy who didn't believe what we were talking, who was being skeptical, and he thought he'd throw me under the bus by introducing me to this NASA physicist. Well, lo and behold, an hour later, he comes back and asks the physicist, well, what do you think? And the guy was like, I'm fascinated that they were able to take this angle with physics and figure this out. I'm just curious of how she was able to figure this out. And the guy, disgruntled, said, thought he was going to throw me on the bus, decided to say, oh, well, that's cool. And he walks away. I was like, what? But if we want to go into the geekery a little bit, just to kind of satisfy those who are really into this, like my background's in engineering, so I love it. I can talk about this till the cows come home. And I'm sure there's some people who are leaders that really want to, if they believe that this is something that can elevate their ability to lead their people in a more precise way, in a way that truly serves the people without just making them another figure in their organization, and honor that unique value proposition that truly convert them into an investment. Right? Understanding the physics behind it, a little bit of the science is what we all need to learn a little bit of. Well, gravitational force is a big part of it because without gravity, our physical forms can't form. As long as we're alive, there are molecular structures that need to be fed, need to be managed. And within the molecular structure, what creates stability in any molecular structure is what we call nuclear forces.
Okay.
Nuclear forces, there's strong states and weak states. Strong nuclear forces introduces stability on a molecular level. When things are stable, it takes less energy to perform actions, to do what they're supposed to do. Like you were saying, when you have to will yourself, likely what will happen is you're introducing a weak nuclear force reaction, which introduces instability, which then makes it harder for molecular structures to do what they're supposed to do because it takes more energy to do that, right?
Gotcha.
One way I'd like to describe is like you and I are having this conversation. We each have our own chairs, and we can probably geek out on this and talk about it till the cows come home. Now, Larry, if you and I were sitting on a floating log in water, both of us having the same conversation while busy trying to keep ourselves from falling off the log, we would probably get pretty tired having the same conversation. In fact, the conversation might not quite be the same if we're still busy trying to fall. And that's essentially what we're capable of helping people understand.
So we're spending more time trying to keep ourselves balanced.
Right.
And since the brain can't multitask, we are dissipating energy. We are dysfunctional, if you will. We're creating that chaos that's not efficient. That's great. That's a great example. Yeah. That's a beautiful example.
And all we've done is given the ability for people to have access to their blueprint, take the guesswork of what it means to create that stable environment so that you can keep doing what you're doing, or maybe shift some things so that you're not doing something that doesn't serve you, that contributes to weak nuclear force instability, to help you not burn out, to help you elevate to that next level of truly tapping into what you're uniquely here to do.
Beautiful. Yeah. Wow. How exciting. Let's have trouble sleeping at night waiting for the next opportunity.
I do. I'm a bit of a futurist, so I tend to go out really far. And there are times where I wake up and then I have to kind of message somebody to make sure that it gets captured somewhere. My dev team lead, he said, do you just wake up and think about these things? I was like, I do. Sometimes I dream about it and I wake myself up just so I don't lose what I'm dreaming about.
Yeah. You know, I'm into developing my next awakening. And because I realize how much I'm holding myself back, regardless of what other people may think and what they may see, you know, because other people's standards are not necessarily making you feel good or bad. You talked about tribes and watching one another, and, you know, that's our really only sense of how we're doing and who we are.
Right.
And, you know, man, if a tribe was up to 50, it became a little more difficult to communicate. Well, now look at social media. We're dealing with billions and if people don't have a strong foundation, a strong sense of what they're aligned with, then that's that old adage, if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything.
Yeah.
And we've created these emotional roller coasters for people where they didn't get enough likes or they got, you know, we all know the rhetoric behind that, but it sounds absolutely, how do people take advantage of this? How do they reach out to you? How do they find out about what you're offering here?
Yeah. Well, they can go to humanop.com.
Okay.
And it'll give you two pathways. Do you want to do it for your own personal development, or do you want to go for developing your teams and your business? Right.
Okay.
And from there, you get directed into the solution that's like kind of like choose your own adventure, right?
Okay.
You get directed to the solution that works best for you, because everybody has a different path. And then ultimately, you will be able to then take the assessment. Takes 10, 15 minutes. You answer really fundamental questions that will likely say, how are they going to get anything from this? And then the algorithm works with our HumanOp Authentic Intelligence Engine and creates your customized set of result videos. And then you can sit there and dive deep for an hour to truly, finally be seen, heard, and understood objectively. No other human beings involved in that moment. So you have that safety of being able to really kind of dive into that and finally start to understand, this is what I am. It's not necessarily who I am, but it's what I am. And now I can start to discern between undesirable nurture behaviors and what I've recognized. It's very intuitive. Most of the time, the majority of the time, people won't say, oh, I didn't know that about myself, unless they're really struggling in life. But if they're kind of like middle of the road, just kind of figuring things out, it's going to have a deep resonance.
Wow.
Like nature's finally speaking up and giving you the answer of what you're all about. So like, for example, and it's all based on our physicality, right? I mean, I appreciate you sharing what you're sharing, because I don't know if you stepped into that or not, but you have a beautiful, empathetic, sympathetic nature about yourself. The part of you that likes to collaborate, inclusive, and work with others so that you can share the archive of deep wisdom that you've accumulated, maybe not even from this lifetime, but from beyond. But there's also the part of you that is also brilliant at holding space for people to feel better. It's like the natural born healer dynamic that also lives within you. Likely you've met somebody 5-10 minutes in and they're just like dumping their whole life story. And you love holding that space because you know ultimately it's going to help them. That's where that compassion in you lives. And so I'm not sure what you're talking about in terms of the evolution of your next step, but I would lean into that, because that part, it lights you up.
Wow.
It's a big part of your nature.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet of you to say that. I want to give you a hug, rub your head. I just can't thank you enough for taking your time to be here. I could talk to you for hours, because one insight leads to another question, which leads to another insight. And I think we could peel the onion to the point where we could have a new awakening as well. And I think that's what really floats people's boats, is when they start to recognize it's not my job that's creating my frustration. It's who I'm bringing to my job that is. And when they recognize that, it's why you do what you do and why I do what I do, because it's priceless. It's that old MasterCard commercial, right?
Yeah.
You know? So we've got people right now who are listening to this, Wei, who are stuck, or at least their narrative have created that situation for them. Mm-hmm. What would you offer to them? What insight would you offer to them that could start to begin that transformation? And then they have resources now to get to humanop.com and start to build on this. Yeah. What would you like to share with them?
So the concept of being stuck, what we found is not a byproduct of something wrong with an individual. It's a byproduct of spending so much time trying to find and understand self that it's gone to a point where we start to attaching our identity to ideologies and belief systems that have an expiration date, because all it takes is somebody to challenge that and now your identity is lost again. You go through this enough time, there's seeker's fatigue. And then when you have that seeker's fatigue, then you just, wherever you end up, wherever the spin ended up landing when you got fatigued, that's where you feel you are, and then you're stuck.
Gotcha.
The beautiful thing about what our technology does, it's so efficient and it's so immediate that you no longer have to think about, oh, I have to go on this long journey again to climb the mountain of Kilimanjaro just to find myself. No. It takes 10, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden you'll be seen, you'll be heard, and you can know immediately what you can do over the next 30, 60, 90 days. And this is all for free.
Wow.
To just
Wow.
lean into it.
Yeah,
right?
Beautiful.
And then recognize that this is where that deep resonance is.
Beautiful.
You know?
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank all of our listeners. You could be listening to anything right now. You had a multitude of choices. And both of us are so blessed and grateful that you chose to listen to us. And I have done a few podcasts, met a couple people along this journey in life, and I am very much in awe of who you just had the opportunity to listen to, because Wei is the real deal. There's such genuineness and such compassion, and yet such curiosity and interest that it really breathes into each and every one of us that we don't have to be fighting things. You talked about gravity, whether you agree or disagree that when you drop an apple, it hits the ground. It's a reality that what can I learn from that? And how can I utilize that? And that's what I hear he's sharing. And I ask all of you to care enough about yourself to go ahead and take the test. The only thing you have to lose is whatever's holding you back right now. And I think we're all willing to let go of that. So, Wei, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here today. Very much appreciated.
Yeah,
and your kind words. That meant the world to me. And I will continue to pursue that. Thank you. So stay tuned to see who's going to be on our next time. In the meantime, make choices that allow you the opportunity to flow instead of to fight. And if you're having difficulty with that, HumanOp.com. And all the best to all of you. See you next time. Take care. Thank you, Wei.